This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Detroit is the greatest!
Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of the Motor City Sports Rant. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Jason Jarvie will call in about a minute. Can't wait to talk to him about the Sweet 16. Michigan State finally made it after a couple seasons away. It's such a good feeling to get out of that first weekend. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't that exciting beating Minnesota in that Michigan State had so many turnovers, and they were still able to dominate Minnesota. But, look, the way the bracket shook out is the way the bracket shook out. And for Michigan State to play Minnesota, a team that they were familiar with, is all good. And now they're on their way to play in the Sweet 16 in Washington, D.C. I look forward to their matchup this Friday, and I think the rest will definitely help Michigan State. I'm so excited. They go and they play LSU, a team that's dealing with some distractions. And by all accounts, when you look at the matchups, Michigan State should be okay to advance. Now, Michigan, on the other end, they may have a little bit more difficulty, but I do believe both teams, Michigan and Michigan State, are going to advance. They're going to the Elite Eight, and there's an opportunity to break it down with Jason. I look forward to getting his sense of how he experienced it, what he thinks about Michigan State, their chances. Can they, based upon what we saw with Duke? You know, they struggled with Central Florida, and they were just one shot away from losing. So I'm curious to see what he thinks about that, and does he think that Michigan State, maybe if they do advance past LSU and they play Duke, can Michigan State maybe match up with a team that many people believe doesn't shoot that well? I'm excited to bring Jason on. Jason Jarvie on the phone line, brother. What up?
Not much. How about you?
I'm good. I'm excited. I opened the show talking about how exciting it is. Michigan State got out of the first weekend. Look, I wasn't super excited to play Minnesota because they had all those turnovers and they still won the game. But heck, you get to the Sweet 16 however you do it, right?
Exactly. That's. I'm glad they didn't have to play Louisville, because that, as I said last week, I feel like that's a team. It's like a kryptonite for Michigan State, and I knew going up against Minnesota, I mean, they still didn't play their best game ever, but they still were able to come out on top, and they got the victory. And that's all that matters. You got out of the first weekend.
Yeah, they got out of the first weekend, but yeah, you said it. All those turnovers, the scoring drought. I had tweeted on our Twitter page, @Detroit Podcast, it looked like in the second half for a stretch that they looked like the worst offensive basketball team on earth. I mean, there was turnover after turnover. They couldn't get the ball inbound. They were so out of sync, but yet again, Cassius Winston comes to town and he delivers. And when you got Cassius Winston, an obvious leader, it's all good, right, baby?
Yeah, everything it seems to be going right in March. Cassius Winston stepping up, and honestly, I don't want to be too confident, but I feel like basically I think we're gonna have no trouble with LSU. I think we're gonna walk through them, and really, Duke that's the concern. That's gonna be our big test. Can we beat Duke?
I'm so thankful that they get the extra day of rest to play on Friday. And obviously, you know, they're working on LSU right now, but they're also having scouts look at Duke, and they're starting their preparation for Sunday should they advance. And I do think they'll be ready. They will have to play their best game versus Duke, but let's just get by LSU, a team that, how crazy is that? We're playing the squad that is without their coach because of a scandal of a proportion that could be really bad when you have your coach on a wiretap saying things like talking about compensation for an athlete, which is an obvious violation.
Hey, I'll take any advantage that I can it sucks for them. Michigan State went through their issues last year. They went through all the controversies. So it's our turn to benefit from some of this drama surrounding a different team.
Now, Rico Beard, friend of the podcast, you can follow him on Twitter at Rico Beard. He put out something that was really interesting, a talking point that I want to discuss with you. At this point in time, okay, Michigan State has now advanced to the Sweet 16, and obviously we have high goals for Michigan State. But has this run been good enough because of the fact that, there's been injuries? Last year, they obviously lost in the second round. They've had a tough time of it the last 3 years getting out of the opening weekend. Are you okay if this is it, if they lose either Friday or Sunday and they get eliminated? Is this considered to you, Jason, a successful season still? Because to me, yeah, hell yeah. You got to the best 16, the Sweet 16, in a year when you obviously struggled with a couple of key guys going down. You've had some, controversy throughout the way. You've struggled, to find that, that gear where you say, you know what, you're the best team. I think that this team can still get better, but I think it's a great thing that they've made it to the Sweet 16. It's a good accomplishment. And even if they do lose to LSU, it would be disappointing, but I still view this season as being successful.
I think you can look at it both ways. It's yes and no. I don't think you can really, not getting to the final stage. It's hard, and especially a team like us. It would be different if we were coming out of nowhere and making it to the Sweet 16. And, that would be a successful season. But we're Michigan State. We are expected to be competing on a national level every single year. And this year, even with the injuries, I will definitely feel a little less if they go out and they lose on Friday to LSU. Sunday would probably be the time that I'd say, you know what, we're playing with house money at this point. You're going up against the number 1 overall seed in Duke, and if you get bounced by them, then there's really no shame in that, especially it being Duke, who is the ultimate Michigan State kryptonite. But there are takeaways. There's no doubt takeaways from the season. Cassius Winston elevated his game completely, and he's going to go down as the Michigan State legend. And then, next year it's going to be – I'm excited to see some of these young guys. Aaron Henry really stepped up this season, and he filled a role that needed to be filled when Joshua Langford went down. And then you got the foster lawyer, you got all the other kids coming behind him. And it's just there's reason to be excited, but there will be some disappointment if they go out and lose on Friday.
Did the opening round victory versus Bradley kind of help you? Did it make you have a concern because they didn't play that well? Look, in the tournament, survive in advance, everybody knows it. But that first game was concerning to start off at least the tournament.
I mean, it's concerning, but I think it's something that they need to get out of their system, and over the past couple seasons they've been bounced early, and they need to get past that to finally start moving on. And you saw the jitters in the first few games, and I think now that they did it, they moved past it. I think they can go forward. Tom Izzo can get his team up to where they need to be, and you saw even from the first game to the second game, and the whole controversy with his blowing up at Aaron Henry. Aaron Henry didn't have a good game in the first round, comes back out in game 2, and he plays much better. And, I do believe in the Spartan team. I said it last week when I said I want to believe the Spartans are going to go farther, so I'm going to pick them. I'm going to stick with that right now.
Hell yeah, baby. I think Michigan's going to find Texas Tech's defense to be really staunchy, and they're going to have to make some shots according to everybody. And early on, they've struggled a little bit with their shot. But don't discount Michigan, because they figured out that, hey, you can go inside to Teskey and Brisdakis, and you can get some easy buckets. And that's what Michigan State was doing well, too, in the second contest versus Minnesota. When they figured it out, it's like, oh, kick it down to Nick Ward, kick it down to Goins, and get easy baskets. You don't have to settle for bad shots.
I mean, both Michigan and Michigan State are going to have to play great games in this next round. But yeah, I'm not going to discount Michigan. I do like Texas Tech in the matchup. But either of these teams, Michigan State, they have what it takes to move on. And I'm not going to lie that Michigan definitely has the easier path if they get past this next game. If they're going to go up against Gonzaga, I'd rather play Gonzaga than go out and play Duke.
Do you find this tournament so far to be a little bit boring? I mean, besides the UCF super close contest versus Duke, there really haven't been that many supremely close contests or really massively bad upsets. The tournament kind of, people are saying, okay, chalk. A lot of top seeds have advanced to the Sweet 16. Are you finding the tournament to be a little bit boring up until this point?
I do find it a little bit boring, but I just feel like that's just the way college basketball is. College basketball, there are always going to be close, gritty games. There's not a ton of superstars out there because it's just the nature of college basketball. Kids are only there for a year and then they're gone. And you really only see those big teams like Duke and North Carolina who get all the great players who they're just blowing out teams. And so I'm a little disappointed, but I also say that I will watch it as long as Sparty is in the tournament. But I swear to God, if they are out on Friday, I will not watch another game until probably the national championship game.
Okay, now you haven't been on the airwaves since the incident happened, Tom Izzo and Bradley yelling at Aaron Henry for the whole nation to see. Now, we've talked about it really a lot on the network, and everyone's given their opinions, and I want to get your sense of it, too, in terms of the reaction to Tom Izzo being Tom Izzo. But I'll ask you this, because the more days that pass, the more insights you get, and you start to hear a little bit more about what people are thinking and how they're processing the information. And obviously, that I support Tom Izzo. I support that kind of coaching. I think yelling at players is fine as long as you have that relationship with the player and that you're not crossing the line. But we do have to give notice and we do have to be aware that it is 2019 and that there are cameras everywhere. There are, scenarios in which there is more attention given to incidents and stuff like that. So was it a bad look for Tom Izzo to scream and lose his shit at that particular moment on Aaron Henry at the NCAA tournament when all the cameras are there and everybody's watching? Because I go back and forth a little bit. I respect those that disagree with Tom Izzo, but I just disagree with the notion that a guy can't be aggressive in his approach to dealing with young kids. But it is 2019, and people are more sensitive to that stuff, saying that, look, maybe that kind of stuff is not needed in 2019, but I don't know. The argument's being made. It goes, back to parenting and, should you yell at your kid or should you be a little bit rough with them, or coaching, or should you be demonstrative in front of a player to try to get his attention? I'm all for it. I'm okay with it as long as there's mutual respect. But, there are some people, and a lot of them were Michigan fans, but there are people nationally that say, look, that just because Tom Izzo is respected and just because he's never crossed the line doesn't mean we can't critique the fact that this man might have an anger problem.
I will say I agree with you that there is a line, and that Tom Izzo, he walks the line. But that's what being a college basketball coach is. It's walking right up to that line and getting the most out of your players. And as you've seen, how many former players have come to his defense, just saying, Tom Izzo he's a great coach. This is what he does. And I'm thankful for him for being that way. And I say shame on every single, reporter, whoever covered that and said that this was a bad look. And, I know you shared the story from the dude from the News?
Yeah.
To put that into context with Larry Nassar, that's just, even though he may not have directly compared it, you're mentioning Tom Izzo in the same breath as Larry Nassar. And that's blasphemy. And I loved when I went to the Twitter link, that the first comment was from a good friend of mine, as you probably know, Matt Derry. He comes out and just said, this is an awful piece, and shame on you for saying this. And it is. That's what it is. It's ridiculous. People saying that this was too far, and that because It's not. It's not too far. This is babying America to its extent, to the height. Because, where are we going to go next? You can't say anything to anybody? I don't know. It's ridiculous.
Well, it's not that you can't say anything to anybody. It's that you can't have a look where on national television with a big audience, you kind of needing to be restrained by your players. You can basically, I think the point that got people upset was not the first time when he's out there, going at Aaron Henry. It's the second time when he's on the bench and he gets up and two players from Michigan State have to kind of restrain Tom Izzo, that people are like, that's a little bit much. And I do think
why do people get to jump to conclusions though that they just think that he would have been on Ben. Do you think Tom Izzo really would have punched him right there? No, he wouldn't have. He would have gotten in his face again because probably Aaron Henry was trying to plead his case and Tom Izzo was having none of it. He wanted him to know what he did and how he can get better. And it's just it's ridiculous of this thought that all these cameras are on everybody and you can't do anything bad. You're not going to convince me otherwise.
Okay,
this isn't Ray Rice or Kareem Hunt going out and punching a girl in the face or pushing and kicking them. This is Tom Izzo being a coach in a game in the highest tournament of their sport.
I want to reiterate, obviously Jason and I support Michigan State and we support Tom Izzo, but the more you think about it, it is 2019, and yes, a certain type of kid will sign up and play for Michigan State, and they will get better, they will be coached up, they will get an earful from time to time when they don't do what's needed from Tom Izzo. But I'll ask you this, because you see it, I see it, kids today don't respond as well by and large to coaching like that. So when you scale back, and I want you to put your thinking cap on, Jason, when you scale back and you say, okay, yes, we do support Tom Izzo, we don't see anything wrong in theory with what he's doing, but knowing that people are against it and knowing that a lot of young kids are against it, and people are saying that, some other coaches might use that footage to negatively recruit against Michigan State, I look at it and I say, what's the biggest complaint that I have with the Spartan basketball program? They don't get enough top talent. I mean, Jabari Parker goes to Duke. They're constantly losing out on good players, even in the state of Michigan, to other organizations, to other colleges. And I say, why? Why isn't Jabari Parker going to Duke? Why aren't the top name prospects from Michigan, by and large, going to Michigan State collectively? And I think part of it has to do with Tom Izzo can't build a team full of superstars where he has the overall 1, 2, 3 pick in the NBA draft because of this. Because, now, not right or wrong, but kids today are more sensitive. They don't want to be yelled at in public. They don't want to be told 6 times to play defense. They don't want to be told these things. And so they might go to other places where they're told they're awesome, they're unbelievable, look, get them next time, the rah-rah coach. And I think Tom Izzo, maybe not to tone it down, but maybe to display it less in public. Maybe if he changed his ways in the next 5 years, I think he could build a team that can consistently go out there and make the Final Four in a run. Because when you look at the talent that's coming to Michigan State, it's good, but it's not nationally good like it is Duke. That's the biggest weakness that the Spartans have, is they coach up players, but they're not getting supremely talented individuals at the level of a Duke, Kansas, Kentucky, and the national powerhouses. Look at Gonzaga. They're getting guys from Japan, and they're getting guys from all over, and they're making it happen and consistently getting to the NCAA tournament. I think Tom Izzo, if he were to look back on his career, and if you were to ask him, look, how come you missed out on some supremely talented guys that could have come here? He might say, you know what, I rode kids hard, and it got out there that this is how I was, but I didn't change my ways. And I just think that if he did a little bit, it might allow for some kids to be recruited to Michigan State and actually sign up.
I just don't see – I'm going to tell you why you're wrong, and you can laugh about that. But, first off, I just don't think you can really compare to Duke in Kentucky, because I think those schools are always going to get the top talent just because of the nature of who they are. Because they're Duke and Kentucky. It's the same reason why all the best football players go to Alabama and Ohio State. It's the way it is. I would love to have facts to give you and give you all these stats of the reason why these kids are going there, aside from look at all their championships that they win. So that's the reason why all those players are going there. Now, as you've seen in the past couple of years, when Tom Izzo does get these, top tier talents that we've been lacking, we haven't been getting the focus because you're right. Those kids don't respond well to being rided hard. If Jaren Jackson actually responded to the way Tom Izzo coached him, maybe he would have been a better player. Maybe he would have been a top 3 pick in last year's draft. But because he played so poorly, he dropped his draft status. And what was so wrong before we started getting these, top tier talents? We were doing it with Mateen Cleaves and Morris Peterson, and so we don't need that all the top tier talent. We can get to Final Fours every couple years and make deep runs without top tier talent. Tom Izzo has proved he can do that.
Okay, see, I just look at it and I go, when you strive for greatness, sometimes you have to go outside your comfort zone and change a little bit and evolve.
And you're going to ask Tom Izzo to be a completely different coach.
See,
and that's not Tom Izzo.
And see, that's where I think the disconnect comes in, is that I would, in a way, sacrifice a little bit of what I would want in an effort to reach the goal. Because I want to be Duke. I don't want to be 1-11 versus Krzyzewski. I don't want to be 1-11 versus Duke. I want to be a guy that Zion Williamson looks and goes, damn, I want to go to Michigan State over Duke. I want to be Duke, Kentucky. I want to be, because you got to remember, Jason, Alabama wasn't Alabama for a period of time until Saban got there.
Exactly. You need the coach. The only way that happens in Michigan State is if you actually get like Mike Krzyzewski to come in and coach Michigan State, or John Calipari has another scandal at Kentucky, and then he decides to move on and he goes to Michigan State. So there's teams and there's coaches that players follow. Urban Meyer, when he was at Florida, he had a national championship team. He left, he went to Ohio State after they sucked for a year, and you saw what happened after he got there. So it's not as easy as just like, just dial it back a little bit and maybe be a little bit more of a player's coach. It's not that easy.
No, it's not that easy. But I think, and I go, well, maybe Tom Izzo could be a little bit more player friendly. And I think by what you're saying, you believe that Michigan State maybe under Tom Izzo could get one more national title, and that's probably about it, and that we should settle for just being a above average program that gets to the Final Four every so often, and that we should stop maybe with Tom Izzo looking at, doing more?
I think Michigan State is always going to compete, and anything can happen when it comes to March. I think he has at least one more in there. He might have a couple. I don't know. I mean, you never know what's going to happen with players, if they're going to stick around, if what talent are we going to unearth, who's going to develop. So it's really just a wait and see. But I don't see a huge issue with what Tom Izzo is doing. And honestly, I'm glad that he's gone more back to getting guys who will stay for 4 years and that they'll actually buy into the system, because that's when Michigan State was at its best. That's when we were consistently beating Michigan, when we were always competing in the Big Ten, and we weren't having these discussions about Tom Izzo, should he dial it back?
Okay, Jason, I'm going to ask you about one more thing, but stay tuned. I'm going to ask you about Matthew Stafford and the news that you heard earlier on Tuesday, but I want to thank a fine sponsor of the network, the Motor City Pawnbrokers. The Motor City Pawnbrokers are the one-stop pawn shop when you're in need of short-term cash or are looking for quality brand name new and pre-owned merchandise. With locations in Detroit, Ferndale, Roseville, and Warren, their mission is to deliver exceptional value. For all information regarding the Motor City Pawnbrokers, please go visit online at MotorCityPawnbrokers.com. That's MotorCityPawnbrokers DSP.com, a great sponsor of the network. All right, Jason, I know you saw the reports. It came across my phone. I got the notification, and I was conflicted at first because I saw the report that the Miami Dolphins and Adam Gase maybe had some contact with the Detroit Lions prior to last season, and they were offering potentially a first-round 2018 NFL draft pick to take Matthew Stafford to Miami. Well, now, of course, as the hours passed since the early reports, there's reports now saying that that phone call between Gase and Matt Patricia never really happened. But it's kind of swirling out there that maybe the Dolphins had peeked at maybe getting and trading for Matthew Stafford. And I know how you feel about it. It's well documented. But if that offer was on the table, if an organization, whether it be Miami or somebody else last year, it would have been a big cap hit. But if they would have offered one, maybe two draft picks last year when Matt Patricia first walks in the door, do you think the Lions might live to regret that decision by not pulling the trigger and just letting go and cutting ties with Matthew Stafford?
I definitely think they might. If that was truly an offer, knowing what I know now, yeah, they might come to regret it because...
Right, make the move. Yes, make the move.
It sucks. I mean, and I hate to say it, but I don't know. Last season, I wasn't at that spot either. If you would have said that Miami was going to come with a first-round pick for Matt Stafford, I would have said that's not enough. Because before last season, I was still on Stafford that, he can still be successful. But just last season, the taste is horrible in my mouth. And with this news, it makes me feel even worse.
Yeah. When you look at Matthew Stafford, it just seems like the organization is trying to win despite of him by building a defense. But if he can do the job, if he can just deliver the ball in space to the running backs and to check it down to receivers and make the right call and not turn it over, I think it can be fine. But I would have made the move. But the problem is, the sticking point is everybody, I think when you talk to him about it, when you poll him, would have made the move outside of the enormous cap hit that it would have caused the Detroit Lions. I don't think people are by and large attached to Matthew Stafford like they really love him. They just don't want to let him go, knowing that by letting him go, he could have success somewhere else, and by leaving, it would cost the Lions massively to pay a guy and have his number be on the books on the salary cap without getting nothing in return for him. So I think people are invested in Matthew Stafford, but I think in a year or two, when his cap number goes down, you're going to be hearing, if he doesn't perform, that the cries and the demands for him to be gone elevate to a high level, not just us and half of the audience. I think it might be 3/4 of the audience will be against Matthew Stafford when you can cut him and just only have a minimal cap hit.
Absolutely. We're really at a point where live or die Matthew Stafford, and we're stuck with him for better or for worse. He may come out this season and maybe he has a great season, but history shows he's probably going to be an average quarterback. He's going to look great at times, and there's going to be times that we just have no idea what he's doing and why is he the highest paid player in the NFL.
We got about 90 seconds left on this podcast. Thanks, everybody, for downloading the Motor City Sports Rant every Tuesday on the network. Eminem, he goes out, and let's say he starts a new AAF football team. You supporting it? You going to go down there? Maybe. Do they do enough? If Eminem is behind it, they get some talent, they start winning. Is it enough if Eminem brings an AAF team here to Detroit to maybe pull you away from supporting the Detroit Lions? Would you support a team in the AAF playing football in Detroit?
There's enough love in my heart for both of those teams. It's not like the AAF and the NFL are going on at the same time. So if he brings an AAF team to Detroit, I'd be excited because the way those teams work, they bring in talent from schools who are in the area. So we probably see some old Michigan State guys, some old Michigan players, even some Central Michigan and Western Michigan players. So I'd be down with that. I'd go at least check out a game if it's reasonably priced.
Follow Jason on Twitter at Jarvie the King. He is the king of podcasting. I love talking to him every single Tuesday. Thank you, sir. Let's enjoy these contests. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. You've just downloaded the latest edition of the Motor City Sports Rant. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Go green.
Okay, nice, idiot. You. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.